Good afternoon. I'm Mark Brearley. For me it was a happy accident. I went to buy a tray from a small urban manufacturer. A few months later it became a two-family business. My family and Mr. Schreiber's family. We make trays, aluminium ones, deluxe, design classics. About 20,000 per year emerged from our Peckham factory. It started in the basement of a radio shop in the 30s, became K-Met in 1947, a classic story of city enterprise. 6 years ago, the business nearly evaporated. But now we're on the up, have tripled sales, pushed into 40 countries, grown the team to 12 in 400 square metres, and even got ourselves a royal warrant. We're proud to have been in our part of South London for 72 years, contributing to the diversity of the area's economy, one of over 100 industrial businesses in that part of town. Yet the storm clouds have come. The local government want all the industry around the Old Kent Road to go away. They want housing to push us aside. This threatens extensive suffocation of enterprise. Our story, where us and our neighbours find ourselves, is typical of the London of now. A production economy that had been written off, assumed to be in terminal decline, but has in fact returned to growth, alongside the rest of our city's industry. 11% of London's jobs are industrial, close to 500,000. But just as that starts to be evident, we all get confronted by accommodation shortages, the threat of expulsion, find that we need to put energies into fighting for our right to the city. A typical scene in my city. Those red uniforms, it so happens, are all made in Tottenham, North London, by a wonderful business who now expect to be evicted. One of the thousands of victims of a strip out of the space needed to house a burgeoning, super diverse economy and a failure to build new. We're in the midst, in London, of a flourish, a refreshing of urban vitality, but at the same time a fast and grim demixing process. I will tell you about one part of what that process threatens. In your cities too, London's just my example. I will suggest that inventive response is now a crucial urban project. Pick an area. Let's look along the Thames from Rainham. Hiding in there, both standalone and weaved in with the city fabric, are huge material yards, stockholders, builders' merchants by the dozen, timber depots, recycling plants. In the distance, Bedrtijvige, who make Pepsi for London to drink, Tate & Lyle Sugar, the vegetable oil refinery in Erith, the gold ingot manufacturers, taps and magnets, skip hire, waste transfer, hauliers, wharves, rail freight, warehouses. Businesses working with metal, glass, paper, plastic, laundries, packers and shippers, Ford's diesel engine plant in Dagenham, London's biggest factory, over 1 million engines each year. Lots of windows, doors, kitchens and wardrobes, foundries and fabricators, metal spinners, millers, punchers, Tilda Rice, the wax people, laboratory glassware, plating and coating, salmon smoking, Whittaker and Sawyer and Mason Pearson making brushes, the pallet people, the makers of garden sheds, ice cream wafers. In my city, the industrial economy is dominated by the everyday support of our lives. Hidden away, but vital. Needs to be near and always evolving. This is Closed Loop in Dagenham, who set up in London because of its stream of waste. And now, under the wing of Veolia, they produce food-grade plastic recyclate out of 35,000 tonnes of plastic bottles per year. The city's serving economy is no small matter. Humdrum, hidden but vital. Where's my parcel, my groceries, my bus? Thousands of depots deliver what we need, and what we want. Here's the fresh from the wrapper's new Waitrose home delivery depot in Coulsdon. We'll need many more of these, big and small, as London's population grows by a third over the coming decade, and doubly so as our shopping habits adjust. The new Morrisons and Ocado Customer Fulfilment Centre in Erith, £185 million invested and expected to bring 3,500 jobs when fully operational. While most of us habitually look the other way, all this is happening, feeding the daily needs of the burgeoning city and woven into its fabric. And the majority of city manufacturing businesses are closely hooked to the urban market, producing just-in-time and bespoke wares, ranging from sandwiches and dairy products to stage sets and costumes. All of this will grow strongly in our fast-expanding city. We will need more, not less, than our current 140 plus steel fabricators and 250 printers. More wood workshops, stone cutters, ready meal preparers. Huge investment is going into volume bakeries. Warburton's spent £70 million on upgrading their Edmonton plant that now runs around the clock throughout the year, 23,000 loaves per hour. Meanwhile, blossoming appetite for craft baked bread has grown the number of smaller wholesale bakeries. In London today, more than 170. These trends are magnified by increasing city prosperity and burgeoning interest in local origin. London's bespoke tailoring industry reversed decades of decline, now boasting over 80 such businesses. And there's a reshoring momentum. Humbrol paint, loved by model makers, for years produced in China, but recently a London company got the contract to manufacture it. And a factory near my own is proud to make the tins. Stories about the death of mature city manufacturing were exaggerated. Albion Knitting Co. in North London began in 2014, the first industrial-scale flat knitter established in our city in the last 80 years. They serve locally based luxury brands who want both sampling and production on their doorstep. Brompton, the UK's biggest bicycle factory, fast-growing. Food production has been the quickest evolver. Following the craft beer and coffee phenomenon that gave us 70 breweries and 24 wholesale roasteries, London now also has distilleries and soft drink producers, doubling its count to 6 of each, and a huge number of niche food preparers. While once it might have seemed just quirky that those red military dress uniforms are produced in Tottenham and ceremonial hats in Peckham, now it's an indicator of London's exciting potential for manufacturing growth, as is the ongoing strength of 4 mannequin makers, 50 precision engineering workshops, 7 metal spinners, 13 lift makers, 20 foundries, 36 shoemakers, furniture production that seemed doomed just a few years ago is growing once again, with now around 230 workshops. Jewellery making and other fine metal work has returned to growth, a substantial niche sector that's strengthening. And of course, we have 3 thriving umbrella makers. Examples like these aren't unique to London. Mature cities everywhere are seeing such a refreshing. But all is not well. Competition for space is intense. London is being stripped out. Industrial activity is being hit the hardest. In this constricting city, we're losing the ability to welcome. Opportunities are being curtailed. Parts of the economy are starting to migrate away. We're seeing a shrinking of chances, mismatch between the city's dynamic and its physical fabric. Builders merchants scour the city for a home alongside recyclers, equipment hirers, all sorts of manufacturers. Logistics companies shout that they want to be within the M25 orbital motorway, and many of them need to be close to the centre, but the space is not there. Across London, industrial premises are being squeezed. In 14 years, the whole city has lost 16% of its industrial footprint. We've gone from flood to drought. Businesses are suffering an escalating shortage. Rents have doubled in 5 years. We're heading for an industrial accommodation deficiency of at least 700 hectares. That could make 10% of our city's industrial economy homeless, a threat to 50,000 jobs. Meanwhile, the filigree of small workshop spaces in residential areas and high street settings, the slowly evolved depth structure, is being feverishly removed. With reduced capacity for entrepreneurialism, without space, urban industry will be strangled. This would be a tragedy. It's not what we want. With echoes of Jane Jacobs over 50 years ago, we have to speak up again for the urban, for the filigree and diverse. We must observe, reveal, describe the city we want, then devise the means to shape it. We must invent. It is our job together to shape cities, ensuring we can welcome the whole dynamic, accommodate a full economic as well as domestic life, weave it in as cities repopularize, get more intense. We have a type challenge. We need industrial space standalone and in mixed developments, embraced alongside and below other uses. And in cities like yours and mine, we have no alternative but to make industrial accommodation away from the ground floor become a significant part of the provision. We need the people who deliver industrial accommodation to think city. The job includes hunting for examples. Humble shop and factory in Leighton, marquees, metal workers in a housing block here in Vienna, housing above storage, loading and heavy goods vehicles in Delft. Highway maintenance depot slipped into Munich, a big tyre warehouse happy alongside housing and showrooms in Buda. In Napoli, car repairers alongside shops and cafes down in the far south of Italy. In Brussels, while up in Rotterdam, adeptly tucked below flats in one of those superb mid-century frontage and yard blocks. In London, hosted by a classic piece of high street depth. In Kortrijk, there is a filigree of industry weaved in with the domestic. In that city's Bissegem area, we recently counted 80 small clusters of embedded industry, all thriving and accepted. In Salento, I came across a pasta shop with street frontage, and behind it they have the factory, 200 square metres, embedded in the block, and another space in the nearby industrial area. They work between the two, proud to export to Germany. And we can do more like London's bus garages, immovable and embraced. Learn from the breathtaking integration of the Godiva factory into a super varied Brussels block. Occasionally the examples are more recent and new, like this spontaneous development in Hevaart, residential above the entrance to a huge used car export yard, again in Brussels from the 80s, double-decker logistics. In Western Flanders, everywhere, housing and industry are developed together as they long have been, product of an entrepreneurial culture. And as London grows, we look at the developments that could so easily incorporate more mix, welcome in the big spaces we need, but currently do not. Here, near my own factory, a large housing development has big span spaces for a school, but that could just as well have been a factory or a courier depot or a taxi repair workshop. In Barking, there is a huge new Asda supermarket with housing above. The big lorries and the yard and the noisy plant are all incorporated into the building. If that's possible, then why not food producers, fabricators, joiners, builders merchants. Indeed, recently finished near King's Cross is a large builders merchants with student living above. Meanwhile, in Germany, they're building Gewerbehof, multi-storey workshop buildings to house businesses priced out of other accommodation in the inner city. In Munich, they've recognised the need. In Hamburg, near the middle of the city, this one is just completing. And now fully let, 100 industrial units, 4 floors, giant goods lifts. In Vancouver, just 15 minutes walk east of the centre, this development is going up. It will combine 350 flats with offices on top of 2 levels containing 60,000 square feet, 6,000 square metres, of industrial on a high street. Here in West London, an aggregate wharf with residential is proposed. It doesn't get much bolder. And by that same river, this 3-storey multi-user logistics building, slotted in to a constrained urban site, will soon commence. It's a type that is taking hold in Europe, a 2-level one for IKEA in Paris. In London, global industrial developer Goodman just bought 4 hectares only a few kilometres from the centre of the city for a record, eye-watering £74 million per acre, and it's rumoured they could do industrial on 6 storeys. Students, where I do some teaching, have been amongst those exploring how it can be done for whole areas and checking out type possibilities, residential with industrial and diverse other uses, where the alternative would be just residential. Here, testing by our friends at Karakusevich-Carson Architects, industry and housing together, an alternative plan for part of Tottenham. More of that, please, until it becomes normal. 5 years ago, Atelier Brussels' productive metropolis kicked off, sponsored by the governments of Flanders and Brussels. They asked me in as the atelier master. It's been part of an attitude-shifting process about motivation and intent, as well as about design and planning. We worked through a series of sessions, nurturing interest, sharing. The first focus was on areas of Brussels where there is immediate prospect of change and significant public authority leverage. Design teams explored the type challenges, how to incorporate industrial accommodation into new mixed development, in a way that Brussels has achieved brilliantly in the past but forgot how to do during recent decades. We showed at the 2016 Rotterdam Architecture Biennale, arguing that we should no longer push away economic diversity. We shared some of the Brussels explorations about the value of embracing mix, no longer brushing aside. We showed the first outcomes of what the architects were doing. We drew people in. Back in Brussels, the support has got stronger. Understanding and enthusiasm has blossomed. We took that show on tour. Then more workshops, in fact 20 in all, delving into the intensification of Buda here, industrial area in the north of the city, and in the southern Sene Valley. Considering the Catala and Audi expansion sites, how could plans get better? Suggesting new multi-level industrial by the canal, and in Borret, and around Lefebvrestraat. In cities like Brussels, some of the first steps have been taken. Plans have been drawn, bold ones, but there are still mountains to climb. Developments are starting to appear that carefully combine deep, big spaces, able to take industry in a way that works with housing, with all the other activities of the city. It's beginning to come real, with excellent city dev leading the charge. Housing and industry together. I would like to say that London will achieve great examples first, but in fact, I think it will be Brussels. Let's summarise then what I've come to understand since I walked into that London tray factory in 2013. To have the cities we want, accommodating and multi-mixed, with diverse, self-driving economies through the current century, will be a big project, a demanding and complex one. To meet that challenge, we will need to look with care at what we have already got, the lucky finds, understanding the vulnerability, notice the ways of configuring. And we need to evolve types as we intensify, build in depth, a richness of accommodation, fabric that's able to welcome. It's a collective design challenge. How to do mix fulsomely, how to embrace industry in the city. A lot is at stake. I'm happy that people linked in today will be on the case through the coming years. Thank you for lending me your ears.